Are you exasperated or what? In this podcast series, myself, Tom Fox, along with Gregg Greenberg, the author of F Argentina, explore the current American psyche being overworked, overleveraged, overtired, and overwhelmed. Find out more about the American exasperation with, well, exasperation. In this edition, the newest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network, a podcast where we unpack stories of exasperation from American life. From debt to PTA to television shows, and even perhaps a tennis player or two. I'm your co-host, Tom Fox.
And I'm Gregg Greenberg, author of F Argentina and 10 More Tales of Exasperation. So this season on F Argentina, we're talking about exasperation. So each day, it's nearly impossible to complete a full day without lashing out at some object, animate or otherwise, that's causing intense irritation. So in today's episode, we explore exasperation with a tale of frustration at the often dreaded couples dinner.
Gregg, I have to say there's a lot of you in this book and a lot of you in these tales. But when I read this one, I thought this one was perhaps the most uber autobiographical story that we've taken up yet. Can I ask, is this autobiographical?
Well, as we said last week, there's a little me in all these different stories. And obviously we're dealing with a couple's dinner, so there's 4 people here and there's kids involved and I have kids. But I need to protect, my friends and everyone who may see themselves a little bit in this foursome. So I need to protect the innocent and the guilty. I'm protecting everybody.
So you have picked some really interesting topics that I think truly are dreaded, and the couple's dinner is right up there at the top for all the reasons you mentioned. It's 4 people. You never know the dynamics. Usually one of the couples are better friends, whether it's the males or the females, and the others are tag-alongs. There's always kids involved, usually a babysitter or 2. And if you're at the home, if the kids are home where you're eating, you have to worry about that. This tale does not have the ubiquitous cell phone, but it does have something else, which you have called the X+1. What is the X+1?
So an X+1 personality is someone who basically needs to better you. So if you say, I had the best bagel ever, it's the type of person who says, no, I had a better one. And it's not like it's a competition. If you enjoyed your bagel, that's fine. And if you enjoyed your bagel, that's fine. There's no reason for someone to come in and top your bagel. Like if you have X, there's no need for someone to come in with an X+1. Some things, there's just no need for competition. But there's some people who feel that everything has to be a competition and they need to win.
Gregg, I don't want to sound prejudiced or even stereotypical, but most of us Southerners would tend to think of you New Yorkers as all being X+1. Is that a fair characterization? Is that unique to the greatest city in America or not?
Well, in order to survive in New York, you need to be competitive. I'm just kidding. No, but I think that it's a type of personality where they really feel the need to top you in anything, even if it's some inane exercise. I mean, clearly there's competition in life, but it's not necessary in a couple's dinner. It's not necessary in a lot of aspects of life.
So you've worked in some very competitive industries in your professional career. I have as well. Why is it that we will tolerate that type of behavior in the professional setting, but not at a couple's dinner?
Well, I don't even know if it's that tolerable in a professional setting, because in the end, you want your team, whether it be in a law firm or a securities firm or marketing team or whatever, you want your team to succeed. You want your product to succeed. You want your firm to succeed. And whenever you have someone who's in it for their own glory and who wants to rise above everyone else, and in order to push ahead, push other people down, or make other people feel worse about themselves, that's never productive in the long term. And when it comes to doing that at couples dinner, during our free time, it's so scant. You get so little free time. The last thing you really want to do is to kick back and have to deal with someone bloviating, or to tell you that if you went on the really great trip to West Hampton, for them to tell you that no, West Hampton's not a great Hampton. You need to go to East Hampton. Last thing you need.
So talk about Jodi and Joan. These seem to be, once again, what a lot of people think of as stereotypical New Yorkers, New York wives, New York mothers. They seem to have a lot of similar experiences. What binds them or bounds them together so closely?
Jodi and Joan are two professional women in New York. And like a lot of professional women, they're striving to get up that corporate ladder. It's not easy for women anywhere. And they had children at the same time. And a lot of professional women find that if they have children at the same time in New York, then they're going to the same gymboree classes, and they're going to the same restaurants and other type of classes, and they become friends. And that's actually how a lot of New York friendships happen, I guess, out of New York City as well. I don't know if I'm biased, but it's where I live. But that's how you see a lot of friendships take place, is that women meet after they have kids, and then there's sort of like a parallel lines where they become friends. And a lot of times the husbands get roped in, and then eventually you may have a couple's dinner.
So let me focus on each one of the wives now. Let's start with Jodi. Why does she blow up when such people as David turn up in her life, i.e. the X1s, and pontificate so much?
Well, she just doesn't have a lot of patience for an X+1 or someone who needs to top her if she says something. Once again, it's not easy for women to get ahead still in corporate America or on Wall Street, so they have to fight. And the last thing they need is a mansplainer or someone to top them. So she's very sensitive to that fact. So whether it's at work or out of work, if someone comes and has to best her, really for no need, it really gets her going, and she has a really short fuse when it comes to that.
So what about Joan? It appears from the story Joan does not have any apparent character defects, at least not in this story. But is she completely oblivious to her husband, or does she love him so much, or that's just the way he is?
Well, Jodi's husband, David, is a very nice guy, very mild-mannered, even-keeled. Joan's husband, however, Scott, he is an X+1. So that's what makes this particular couple's dinner so fraught and so open to both comedy and it's combustible. And Jodi has been avoiding this couple's dinner for a long time because she knows how awful Scott is and how tiresome it could be to deal with an X+1 like him. And she didn't want to really have this couple dinner because she didn't think it was going to go well, because she knows she doesn't mesh well with that type of person. Sometimes it happens. Can't get along with everybody, Tom. Just can't. You and I can get along. Everybody can't.
Yeah, but he's a trial lawyer. I'm a recovering trial lawyer. Trial lawyers are bigger than life. They have to be. If you're a great trial lawyer, you have a great personality. I'm sure you might even know some trial lawyers. Why should that change just because he's in a social setting? Unfortunately,
he's not in a court of law trying a case. That's the problem, If he wants to use hyperbole and be an X+1 and one-up other people in court, that's understandable. He needs to win the case. But if you're dining with another couple, I guess that it's time then to turn down the volume on that particular aspect of your personality. And he's the type of person that can't turn down the volume. And in effect, he really doesn't know that, that he's doing it, that he's always topping people. And unfortunately, Joan doesn't stop him. Maybe it's one thing that maybe she's oblivious to it. Maybe she likes that in him. But either way, it's something that her friend Jodi can't stand and that her husband doesn't create for a great night.
So this was the first of the 11 tales of exasperation where you actually give instructional advice. And you give that, of course, in the form of storytelling. And that instructional advice is how to deal with an X+1. So what was the strategy that meek, mild-mannered David employed, and why was it so successful?
What David employed to calm down his wife so she wouldn't combust, and to put Scott, who was an X+1, in his place so he wouldn't set his wife off, is he employed the strategy of using X plus 2. So basically, if Scott said that he went to a good concert, David said, oh yeah, I was at that concert too. I was backstage trumping Scott's front row seats. And that really drove him nuts to the point where Scott backed off.
So I have never employed that strategy. I've employed a different strategy, and I wanted to pitch this strategy to you to see if it would meet the Greenberg test. And that strategy was, I've employed it a couple of times, and it's when I'm either agreed to or been forced to have business dinners with people I didn't want to talk to. And the second time I did this, we were walking to the restaurant, and I told my wife, I looked at her and said, I'm going to talk the entire night. Do not interrupt me, period. And she looked at me and said, what? I said, don't interrupt me. And we walked in, we sat down, and I started talking. And I kept talking. And I talked through appetizers. I talked through the entree. I talked through dessert. I talked through a cup of coffee. And 2 hours later, we stood up and said, it's been great to see you guys. We've got to go. Would that strategy work, or is an X plus 1 really a different animal?
You know, it's very difficult to tame an X plus 1. I admire your strategy of just saying, you know something, I'm going to keep talking through the entire dinner, and then we're just going to pay the check and go. You have a lot of moxie, Tom Fox. I admire that. I don't know if it would work all the time, but hey, maybe I'll try that at some point. But you just got to keep talking in your strategy. Mine is trying to use the X plus 2. You know, if you top the person, maybe they'll back off. And if they don't, it's likely you're never going to have a couple's dinner again, which may not be a bad thing. Just let the wives have their fun. Let the kids get together. All four of you don't have to dine or go on vacation together for a relationship to work.
So, as always, we have a selected quote from one of the characters in the book, and it really ties into one of the themes that I really appreciated you touched upon, which was the X plus 2 solution can be expanded to multiple people. And the quote is from Jodi. X plus 2 was the recipe for the end of couples dinners from now on, but Jodi took that to yet another level. What was, I guess, the genesis of Jodi thinking that, and then how did Jodi really implement that strategy after David had really gone in for the kill on Scott?
Well, I think basically Jodi realized the fact that, look, not all couples can work together. It's hard. You have 4 different people, and it's very difficult to get all 4 people on the same page. And so she admired her mild-mannered, usually even-keeled husband, who's not a braggart at all of a sudden becoming a massive braggart and putting this other gentleman in his place, knowing that it really would be the end of all social interactions, at least between all 4 of them going forward. And she understood that. And she said, you know something, all 4 of us don't have to get along. As long as I get along with my friend and the kids get along, that's enough.
Well, thank you again for joining us for this episode of Effing Argentina. I'm Tom Fox.
And I'm Gregg Greenberg. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Join us again for our next episode where we honor the recently completed U.S. Open by a story of Gregg about a journeyman tennis player's prayer.